Hi, this is a quick update video to show where we are with ERM development, because it's difficult to surface it in a public server just at the moment. So I'm going to put together a quick screencast that shows you where we're up to. We're in the OLF ERM project, which is the backend module for ERM, and we have a Vagrant file here which is basically a copy of the standard folio testing backend with some extra ports opened up so that we can connect to the database. I've already started the Vagrant machine because it takes a little while, but if I Vagrant SSH, I'll get a session on the machine and then I can look at the logs. And you can see there's our folio backend. This exception is mod users, which currently has some kind of a bug where it's trying to expire users and it throws an exception every once in a while. Just ignore that, nothing to do with us. This is the backend service module, which I've made sure we've built. In our scripts directory, we have a shell script which starts this up. I'm just going to copy the command here. We can run the module in many different ways, but while we're on a development machine, this is the script that will start the module for us. So we run that, and if we move over to our Okapi logs, you'll see below mod users throwing another exception. Here we've got the ERM module registering itself. So what we've got now is a standard folio system backend with mod ERM started up and registered. What we have to do now is to enable mod ERM for the DQ tenant, which is the standard tenant we use in testing. Again, in the scripts directory, we've got a little helper script which is dev enable ERM for DQ. This is described in the developer documentation. I'm just going to copy the curl command. This talks to Okapi and asks Okapi to activate the ERM module for the DQ tenant, and you can see here's the ERM module being notified that we wish to enable this module for the DQ tenant, and this is the module creating the database schema and doing all its housekeeping to set up mod ERM for this new user. All good so far. The other thing we need to do is to do some setup. We need some test data basically. So we have a script called dev submit package.sh. And what this will do is to submit some test data, and really I think what I should do is to go through each area of this file, just explaining what it's doing. We start off by loading 3 packages. So these are actually package definition files. You'll find them in the source integration test resources folder of the project, and they're not particularly big packages. I think the APA package is the biggest. It's probably got about 50 titles in it. So that's what we do here. We load 3 packages, so we've got some titles to work with. We create some reference data. So as is a current hot discussion in the product council, all the reference data used in mod ERM is in the database. So it's not just that the lists can be changed, because sometimes the difference between a hard-coded list and a list that can be changed is that the list can be changed in code. These lists are actually in the database, and you can change, so you can have different agreement types. So we create a couple of ref data values for our agreement types, draft and trial. We then create an agreement. This one's a trial agreement, and here we create a draft agreement, so just exercising our reference data. This command, we are adding a package to the agreement, so we're adding the APA package to our find out which agreement it is, the trial agreement. So it's as though we're doing a trial for the APA package. We register a remote source in the next one. So this is a remote knowledge base that we want to sync with, and in this case it's knowledge base plus, because that's the one that's got the interface, the best interface integrated currently. We're going to retrofit that interface onto GoKB rather than the current OAI interface, because it's a lot more efficient. So it'll be the same interface, but we'll implement a server component on GoKB. It's probably the best way of doing that. This call asks the backend to list for us all the content that we've got access to currently, and that's what this script does. So it just sets up some test data, and I'm going to run that now. And what we'll see is lots of work going on the server. So this is creating packages, creating titles, doing lots of work. If I pop over to our Vagrant machine, and it's finished. So here's a page of agreements. In scripts we have a handy SQL file which just lists some useful bits of SQL you might want to use. On the server, I'm going to log into SQL. I'm going to set my search path, and then I'm going to select star from title instance. So these are all the titles that have been created by running our import. I want to see what packages I've got. I've got 3 packages as we expected, and I can look at subscription agreements. There they all are. If you're really interested, we could look at identifiers. There you go. We've got a lot of ISSNs, EISSNs, and other identifiers in there currently. So that's just not terribly exciting because it's all back-end stuff. If I go the OLF ERM UI module, I'm just going to do a git pull to make sure I've got the latest. So again, as per the documentation, go into the UI folder and run yarn start. Oh, yarn install first if you're on a machine. Oh, I've got some updates. Okay, I've got a lot of updates. This can take 5 minutes, so what I'm going to do is quickly pause the video and then I'll unpause it once this is finished. Turned out to be quicker than I thought, only 18 seconds. So now I can do yarn start. Okay, it's come up quite quickly. We've got listening at localhost 3000, so we'll go to a browser window, localhost 3000. So obviously Folio takes quite a long time to deliver all the JavaScript resources to the browser. That's what it's doing. DQ admin. I'm not going to save that. Okay, so in OLF ERM UI we've got 3 modules: settings, ERM and users. We'll go straight to ERM. You can see the ERM dashboard. This is largely just experimental stuff. We're going to agreements and we can see, so this is live data, fetched our trial agreement and a draft agreement. Packages, we can see we've got 3 packages. There are 3 packages, and if we go to the KB section, what we've got are all the titles currently available. So as you can see, we've got 17 pages, which should work out to, let's have a quick look. Yeah, we've got 166 titles in the database, 17 pages. That's about right. Doing some work on the back end here soon, so this will be row select rather than click the select button, but you can see some details, and then we're wiring in some test functions here. So this is all work in progress, but the important thing, something's obviously gone wrong here, because in the KB column we're showing the platform ID. Let's just have a quick look at that. I'm going to stop my build. Source modules KB, and then the presentational component is kb.js, and header KB, package KB. Okay, that's something we're going to need to sort out in the back end. So the last thing I just wanted to show you here, back end started, on the dashboard we've got this trigger KB sync button. These 3 packages which comprise this 166 titles. These 3 packages are ones that we manually loaded, and what this trigger KB sync button will do is trigger the process of going out to a remote database and pulling some data in. If I click that now and go back to the back end, you'll see suddenly it starts getting very busy again. So this is talking to a remote web service, asking for a package listing since a particular date, and then pulling the packages down. For developers, what I've just done in the user interface is the same as running this script, cat dev trigger KB sync, which just calls this URL endpoint ultimately. And what it's causing to do is it's causing the back end to go through the list of remote sources that are enabled, look at the cursor, and then call out to the remote services saying, have you got any changes since this date? Because the update has never run before, it's asking KB Plus for all the changes since time 0, which is 0 epoch in Unix terms. If I go to the package list now, you'll see that we've got page 1 of 3. So we've got packages flowing in. I suspect that's just about finished now. It has finished. So I imagine we've got 23, which is the 20 packages from KB Plus, the first page, and 3, the 3 that we created before. The reason that it does that is there are about 3,000 packages currently live in KB Plus, and I wanted to be able to nibble them rather than bringing them all in one go. So if I hit this button again, I'll get another 20 and another 20. But it's enough to be working with and testing with. If I go into the KB now, you'll see we've got 113 pages. I've never done this before. Again. Okay. So we've got a fair bit of content now. Let's have a look. Yeah. So that's where we are with the KB, and in the coming week the work is likely to be around these 2 buttons, purchase and add to agreement. So purchase is going to trigger a purchasing activity which involves obviously coordinating several services, and add to agreement is more like, I've already bought this thing, I just want to make sure I've got it attached to my agreement. So that's current progress, and happy to talk with people about it.